it's quiet in the corner here. Your credentials suggest a long and involved commitment to working with the elderly black LGBT population. All right. And you support the belief that depression in black gay men has its root in our history as black people. Speak to us, if you would, of that historical impact and describe for us, from your experience, how you witness older black gay men dealing with growing old in a society and a culture that is youth-driven. Are elderly black gay men dealing with depression? How do we recognize it? And what can we who are getting there, if we ever make it, do to help?
Well, interestingly enough, there's a study, I think was done by Michigan University, and they came up with a very interesting finding that older men cope with depression better than younger men. I thought that was exciting, personally. And one of the reasons for that is that as you grow older, these are men that they, let me qualify that, the men that they interviewed. As you grow older, you develop, and you perfect your strategies of coping. It just comes with assuming you are growing up. Because some people grow older without growing up. You know what I'm saying? They're 60, but they act like they're 25. You met them. And so, as you grow older, your perceptions of your life change. You learn to put things in the right perspective. You learn to tolerate pain differently because now you have experienced it. You know, been there, done that kind of thing. So you're not surprised by death. You're not shocked at losing a job. You're not devastated because you lost your home. You realize that life happens. And so you develop an attitude of resiliency that makes it easier to resist falling in that ditch of depression. Having said that, there's a school of thought that says that racism is the template from which other oppressions take the cue. The issue, the racism basically is the belief that one group of people are inherently superior to another group of people who are inherently inferior. Now, apply that principle to any form of oppression. You get the same formula. Men think they're better than women. Yes, you do. And you have older people maybe thinking they're better than younger people and vice versa. The rich think they're better than the poor, and so forth and so on. Mental health in this country has a very, and it informs how we see race, how we see age, how we see sexuality. Have you ever heard of drapetomania? Anyone? Good. You're gonna love this. This is taken from the book Racism and Psychiatry. There's a book entitled, by the way, this is not my book, so I'm not plugging my book. It's called Toxic Psychiatry. Get it. It's going to blow your mind about the reality of the psychiatry. Did you know that a lot of Hitler's advisors were psychiatrists? You knew that, good. For those of you who didn't know, now you know. In the book Racism and Psychiatry, the author says, the black man, it was repeatedly claimed, was uniquely fitted for bondage by his primitive psychological organization. That's a read right there. For him, mental health was contentment with his subservient lot, while protest was an infallible symptom of derangement. What? You want to be free? Thus, a well-known physician of the antebellum South, Dr. Samuel Cartwright of Louisiana, had a psychiatric explanation for runaway slaves. This may sound funny, but this is real. He diagnosed their malady as drapetomania, literally the flight from home madness, as much a disease of the mind as any other species of mental alienation. Another ailment peculiar to black people was, and I can't even pronounce this, is one of these let me try. The Cephesia ethiopica, sometimes called rascality. You ever heard of this? You're gonna be a rascal? That's where it came from. By overseers, but actually due to insensibility of nerves and habitude of mind, explained Dr. Cartwright. Whereas psychologically normal Negroes were faithful and happy, go lucky. The mentally afflicted ones pay no attention to the rights of property, slight their work, raise disturbances with their overseers. This was an actual diagnosis, drapetomania. You wanted to be free. There was something wrong with you. Here's another good one. Benjamin Rush, signer of the Declaration of Independence, dean of the Medical School of the University of Pennsylvania, and the quote, father of American psychiatry, described Negroes as suffering from an affliction called, ready for this, negritude, which was thought to be a mild form of leprosy. The only cure for this disorder was to become white. When I first, and this is many years ago, I was doing some research about something, and I came across this. I was like, wow, this really happened. This is not fiction. This actually happened. They really believe this. And you know what? They still do. That's the read about mental health. When I said before about context and history, this is what I'm talking about. You cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. You've heard that, right? So when we talk about mental health, we have to be very careful not to simply adapt the master's therapeutic systems to solve our issues. They are not designed to do that. Be clear about this. So when you see a therapist, make sure you interview them. I know you're wonderful. Interview a therapist that you're interviewing for a job. In fact, you are the employer. Don't be afraid to ask them questions about how do you, doctor, what do you think about racism? You know what, you want to be clear that this person understands the context of your life. Doctor, how do you feel about hip hop? How do you feel about boys, with their pants sagging? Ask him anything and have a list of questions prepared before you go and see him or her. Because you want to make sure this person is qualified to help you unravel the mess you find yourself in. You want to be around someone who can empathically walk in your shoes. If it's someone who lives in an ivory tower, they cannot possibly engage you authentically. Now, the issue of aging is a victim of circumstances. We live in a society that, as you said, is geared towards young people. We don't honor age. We don't honor the gray hair in this culture. When I came here in 1981, one of the shocking revelations to me was a nursing home. I'm like, what's a nursing home? Oh, a warehouse for old people. Oh, so when you get to a certain age, you become invisible. Oh, wow, that's deep. Because see, where I come from, and it's not to make my culture seem superior, that's not the intent, but it's how we view aging in different cultures. It's not unusual in Panama that there are 4 generations in the same household. Yes. No shame, no leave the house, you're too old to be in the house with your mother, none of that. You know why? It's a built-in support system. When you go to a clinic and you're a therapist or a social worker and you have use an example, a Puerto Rican client, and you have make an appointment with a grandmother, everybody shows up. That's right. The daughter, the granddaughter, the son's girlfriend, everybody shows up. You know why?
Translate.
Well, it's not only that, that's a very good point. It's not only about the language piece, but it's also they want to be present when you, the physician, write or give the prescription. That they all understand this is 3 times a day or 1 time a day. They understand the side effects. They understand what time you should take the medication, what food you should avoid. Now we all have the same information because grandma could be having memory issues. Now she has a support system around her. This is how we in the so-called gay community to treat our elders. Not only because of that, we are, and I put myself an elder, but what the hell? We are walking encyclopedias. Do you understand that? If you meet someone who's 85, that person has lived through what? 2 world wars? Heaven knows they might have buried how many spouses? They have lost jobs. They have lost teeth, hair. What have they survived? How did you make it to 85? What did you do? What's your secret? Let me talk to you. As opposed to, which young people have I was young once, so I know what it's like, assuming that the world begins with you. Guess what? It was here when you showed 5. What did you do? What's your secret? Let me talk to you. As opposed to, which young people have I was young once, so I know what it's like, assuming that the world begins with you. Guess what? It was here when you showed up. So before you got here, there's some of us who are living, who have some information that if you're wise enough, you will ask us some questions, get that information, so when you get to be our age, you can get to where we are now. Okay? So we have to begin to honor the gray hair, as the Bible says. The Bible uses the term hoary hair, the gray hair. And you may not gray because your family, may not be part of your genetics. But you wonder, you will get some wrinkles, and some things will begin to hurt in places you didn't know you had. You develop all kinds of little allergies of different foods and things. And let me say this, that when we say gay community, we have to be very clear. There's no monolithic gay community. That's a fantasy. And I suspect that part of the depression may have to do with not feeling part of. We're excluded on different fronts. Because you're light skinned, because you're dark skinned, because you're 35, because you're 85. Because you live in Harlem, you live in Brooklyn. Any number of things we can think of to segregate each other. Then you talk about gay community and you assume, because you say you're gay, you meet a white gay person with a rainbow flag, you assume that you're social equals. And then you discover it doesn't work that way. Hence depression. What's wrong with me? Why aren't you, I thought we were, no. Then the reality sets in that you're not welcome here. You're not welcome there. You're not welcome in church. You're not welcome in your family. So then why is it a mystery that people are depressed? Really? Really? And is it depression or is it grief? You have lost your role. You have lost your place. You have lost your dignity. You have lost your identity. These are real losses, and depression and grief have to do with losses. And the sooner we recognize that the source of much of our depression is simply the living with multiple losses that you never talked about, because no one wants to talk about it. And to talk about it, you have to know how to listen. Listening doesn't just happen. You have to practice listening. Listening means that when I'm speaking, you shut up. That's what listening means. And you don't prepare a response. You wait till I'm done. And you do something like what I thought I heard you say was. Now I felt like you really heard me. We have to practice this level of engagement that we can be truly, authentically present for each other. All this reading and all of this classism and colorism madness, that's the pathology. That's the pathology. That we have to, in our own space, I don't see myself as this activist is going to change the world. I don't have the illusion. But in my own life, I can exemplify the things that I'm speaking about. And hopefully someone would see me practicing this and be inspired by it. So we each have to bear our own light and not wait for the other person to light a candle. You have a candle, as you were saying. We each have a candle. You have to make the decision to light the candle. What a concept. You have to make a decision to live. You have to make a decision to wake up tomorrow happy. That's a decision. It means that you're not controlled by your circumstances. You control your circumstances. How about that? So we begin to shift the paradigm. We begin to write our own script. We begin to live by our own rules. We are no longer simply echoing what we were told, what we read. We begin to shape the lives that we want to live. We begin to fall in love with the man and the woman in the mirror. It's a decision. Am I making sense?